You.
Go for it.
Yeah, I want to beat you. I think that would be an amazing accomplishment if I could beat you at this.
But
Yeah,
I invented the game.
Yeah, I want to beat you at your own game.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Ask the Accountant Pitstop Podcast. We're still here at Accountex 2025, delivering you some amazing Pitstop podcasts throughout the day. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. You're already in the right place for all your content relating to Accountex 2025 and also all of the other content we've been delivering you. But today we've got an amazing guest lined up, especially when we found you as well. We were on a panel together, weren't we? Last minute panel as well. Yeah. It was Daz. But before we start, we ask everyone, who are you? Why are you here?
Thank you very much. Well, so glad to be here. So I'm Alexis Kingsbury. I have a couple of software businesses and a consulting practice. And typically, I'm helping people make it easy for their team to do things the way they want them done.
Love that.
And so I do that through a variety of ways through my software businesses, which I've got AirManual, which is all about documenting processes and sorting out your onboarding. I've got a podcast, which is called De-Stress Your Business. And it was through that we sort of came to know each other properly via hosting that panel that you're on, and it was excellent. It was really good fun.
I mean, I don't want to break the fourth wall too much, but weren't you kind of asked the day before to host that panel? Or?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was asked. I was asked, Alexis, any chance you could run this panel session? And I said, no, there's absolutely no way. And then after considerable free drinks, that changed. And so, got involved. But no, it was really good fun. Really,
it was good, great. And it would start nice little warm up to the event, wasn't it? Like first one, go for it. And speaking of speaking and talking, you were talking here at Accountex yesterday, weren't you? What was the topic about? How did it go? Talk us through it.
Yeah, so the topic was how to get the best out of your people, even if they're terrible.
Love that.
And it was designed to be a very tongue-in-cheek session, designed to be fun, because I think for a lot of business leaders, owners, practice owners, etc., you have this horrible experience where you can bring in team members and, you're often busy at the time that you bring them in. That's why you're hiring.
Yeah.
And then you set them up to do a role and then get really frustrated when days, weeks, months pass and you feel like why are they doing it this way? Or why can't they just do it the way that is clearly better? And sometimes that can lead to that feeling of, they're a bad performer. I've made a bad hire. And there was a partner that I was talking to where she had made a hire and then after a few months thought, I've made a mistake. And, they've seen the same mistakes come up again and again, templates not being used. They're having to correct stuff that they'd done, and they were making decisions that they were like, I'm not sure I'd have made the same decision. So as a result, they decided, right, I'll rehire. I've made that mistake. A few months later, same story, different face.
Yeah.
Did the same again, let them go, hired again. Same experience. And of course, then they realized, had this uncomfortable and terrifying realization, what if it's not them?
Yeah.
What if it's me? Because the reality is that they weren't terrible hires. She was taking good people and putting them into a broken system.
Yeah.
And so that's what my presentation was all about. We did some fun stuff with sort of taskmastery-esque kind of vibes with people up on stage to kind of demonstrate that actually a much greater leading indicator of success in a role is how you set them up rather than necessarily who you hire. That's important, but often in businesses generally, particularly in the accountancy industry, there's this attempt to hire like unicorn employees who have had 10 years experience doing the job that you're hiring them into and have used all the tools that you use. And the reality is actually you're much better to hire for cultural fit, even if that means from outside the industry, and then give them proper guidance and the checklist and whatever to make sure that they can then do a really good job.
Yeah, I love that. And I think especially in this industry where it's so expensive to hire at the moment, it is such a eye-watering amount. Rachel Harris, who will talk time and time again, would explain how it's always so much better just to throw, perks at employees to keep them and to maintain them than it would ever to have to go out and replace them. And it's a similar sort of mentality, isn't it? If you keep having to replace someone each and every time, the costs would be astronomical, won't they?
Absolutely, and particularly because it's like, I agree that it's expensive, but it's not expensive in the way that you might imagine. Like salaries in relative term in the accounting industry, personally, particularly because I come from a software background, I'm looking at it going, salaries are quite low compared to what might be expected for the level of knowledge and intellect and so on that you're expecting. But it's hard to find people, and so the cost of recruitment is very high. Yeah. So actually, like, as you say, keeping people or getting the best performance out of people is a far more cost-effective way to go, rather than just having to keep on recruiting and hoping that at some point you'll get a good one.
Love that. So this is Accountex 2025. When you first walked in, what was your first impressions of the... Have you been to Accountex before?
I have. So I came last year, and it definitely feels even bigger and even busier. It is amazing. Like, and in fact, I should emphasize the maze in amazing, because it is so easy to like walk in and be like so clear on where you're going. And then typically, because I've been sort of adopted into this industry, and happily so, what I'll tend to do is like walk even 2 rows, and I've had like 4 conversations with people, and people come up and go, "Oh, hi," and you have a big hug. And then quite quickly, I don't know where I'm going or where I am. And so I end up...
try and make it to the edge.
Exactly, just find an edge piece and work your way back round again. So, it's just incredible. And the people are so lovely. Like, in general, in the accountancy industry, my experience is that the people are lovely. Like, outside the industry, people assume, like, oh, well, aren't they boring and stuffy and it's all numbers? But the reality is that the way that accountants get business is through networking and personal relationships. Like, you want someone that you trust and that you can have a proper conversation with. And as a result, they tend to be lovely people in the accountancy industry and that care and that want to solve problems and so on. So I just love it. Like, walking around, having these conversations, it fills me full of energy.
There's definitely passion, isn't there? There's passion in the book.
And caring about what really matters. I think, because for me, one of my core values is about enjoying the journey.
Yeah.
And I think that can be unusual in the software industry, in which 2 of my businesses are, where there's almost an attitude towards, oh, well, I can just go really quickly, burn out a bit, probably burn out employees, but it's okay, because as long as we can get to a certain level of ARR, then we can sell it and, I can retire forever and live on a yacht. Now, of course, the reality is that most never get there. But, of course, that period of burn is very damaging to them and their relationships with the important people around them. And so I know entrepreneurs who have gone down some very negative routes, whether it's divorce or in some cases, considering ending lives and all those things, right, horrible things. And so what I love in this industry, in accountancy, is where actually a lot of the attitude is towards, actually, how do we get you financially in a good place as soon as possible so that you can actually enjoy your life? How much money do you need out of your business so that you can have the holidays that you want, spend the time with the kids that you want, all those things. And I love that that's so aligned to what I believe as well.
Yeah. Because I think that's what we as accountants want to do for our clients, right? And we're trying to, practice what we preach. There's a lot of it, isn't it? And that comes down to it. Just staying on the topic of accountants, what's been your highlight so far?
Lovely people and conversations. Like, energetic ones like this, where we get to just sort of geek out on particular topics, are always fun. I also had really lovely feedback on my presentation, but I spoke to you earlier about one of the particular tasks that I ran on stage, where I had these 2 volunteers kind of pitted against each other, where I gave them different guidance, like how I set them up to succeed. And at one point, the one that kind of wasn't meant to succeed, like the way I set it up, seemed to be doing quite well. And so I had this sort of mild sense of panic and alarm as I went over with the tape measure to measure this tower that had been built using fettuccine and marshmallows, and coming to measure it and hoping, like, please don't have hit the 24-inch target. And it was like 2 inches short, and then when he let go of it, it fell over. I was like, okay, thank goodness for that. Now, please, Laura, have you followed the instructions and done a better job? And she had absolutely bossed it. It stood up for the rest of my presentation, not just for while measuring.
Love that.
And it was 29 inches tall. It was like a beacon of success and demonstrating everything that I've been teaching. So that was a particular moment of relief and elation for me. And I got lots of great feedback about how fun it was.
You would have been the highlight of their day, right? Because there's not many people like to take risks at these events that you were happy to do. So yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, indeed.
And is this sort of topics that you would go through on your podcast then? Talk to me about your podcast.
Yeah, so on the podcast, on De-Stress Your Business, it's all about how do you, as a business leader, get incredible results without constant stress.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that is about how do you identify, what's a frustration or stress point in your business? So maybe, for example, for accountancy practices, it might be client onboarding.
Yeah.
Like you work really hard to line up that client. And then unlike a lot of other industries where actually client onboarding is pretty simple, it's like, welcome, we've now got your money, here's the product or service.
The service done.
With accountancy, it's a huge series of steps, including anti-money laundering and know your customer and all these sorts of things that have to be in place. And that's before you include migration of their accounting software. Like, it is significantly high friction. Yeah. And arguably, at nearly any point, the whole thing can just be reverted back to the easy option, which is my current accountant.
Yeah.
And so that's a big cause of stress for accountancy leaders, and as a result, practice owners tend to be heavily involved in that process, which then causes stress and frustration with the team because you want to be able to empower the team to do it.
Yeah.
And so on the podcast, we talk about these various sources of stress, tend to go really deep into what is it that causes the problems or the common mistakes, and how do you overcome them? And then often I'll share like specific templated checklists or even whole playbooks that go, right, this is what best practice looks like based on interviews that I've done with other businesses on like that have really nailed it. Yeah. So I've got ones on like how to win more ideal clients, how to take the stress out of filing deadlines, we've got one for client onboarding, one for onboarding team members, how to manage unsatisfactory performance, all those sorts of things. If I can plug, people can go to airmanual.link/playbooks to go and get those. Amazing. So we kind of go really, I like going really deep on quite specific things.
And you're actually giving away the content that backs it up, right? And I think that's a big part of it, because you're advising or telling them there's a pain point. Here's your pain point. Here's why it's probably a relatively important pain point. Oh, and here's a solution for it as well.
Yeah, and I think because I see so many business leaders, they know that they should have good processes in the business. They know that, like, if you're going to fix a problem or stop repeated mistakes, you need to be able to look at where in the process in your business it's going wrong. Yeah. And you can't do that unless it's documented. Rachel Harris came on the podcast and we talked about the analogy she used was you can't do a post-mortem to identify the problem if you can't see the body.
Yeah.
And so the same goes with your business process. Like, if you can't see the process, and particularly for a service business, there isn't, it's not like a production line, a manufacturing plant where you can go and walk it. You need it written down. And so for a lot of business leaders, the idea of even spending time documenting a process is terrifying, and they can easily lose days. So instead we said, well, actually, can we just shortcut all of that and say, well, here's a really good process that you can use as a starting point. So that's kind of what we did through that. And
in this day and age as well, if they are struggling to document it, there's technology to help them, right? Like there's Scribe, there's all those other solutions out there. So yeah, I love that. Okay, so an event like this, you've already said that you'll go from area to area and you'll walk around, and you won't get very far, but you'll be walking around. It seems like you're very busy in an event like this, but you must, like everyone else, understand that we're giving up time, we're giving up money, costs, and there's costs associated with it. What's your one tip for anyone out there who's coming to an event like this to make the most of it? How do you get action from an event like this?
I think the most important thing is identifying what's the bottleneck or the frustration or the problem that you've got right now. Because with any presentation that you go to, any book that you open, any event, like this, there are 100 plus brilliant ideas and solutions. The problem is that you will not have time to execute, certainly not all of them, probably not 10, possibly not one. And so what you really want to do is be able to shine the spotlight on your biggest problem. Yeah. And so one of the things I did as part of my presentation is I got people to vote for what's the biggest problem in your practice right now. And I had this list of 7 different areas, or they could identify something else. So to really start them thinking about, if I had to choose, yes, you want more clients. Yes, you want to sort out your client onboarding. Yeah. Yes, you want to improve your outsourcing. Yes, you want to manage your people better. But of those issues, what is the one that's causing you most pain? Yeah. Because if you don't pick, you will flip between them and never truly solve it. And also, if you pick a problem that is not your biggest problem, but looks easy to solve, as soon as it gets difficult or it starts to take time, you'll go, oh, this isn't worth it. So instead, take your biggest problem, the one that keeps you up all night, or the one that means that you have to work weekends, or that you can't take more than a week or a few days out the business. Take that, solve that, and you'll actually find that you then get so much more time. One of the things that through one of my companies, through AirManual, like we often say, and based on our experience, that within a few hours of working with a new client, we'll typically save them 15 hours per week.
Wow.
Which is like 2 days a week.
Yeah, exactly.
And you go, but how is that even possible?
Yeah.
And it's typically because we just shine a spotlight on one thing that practice leader is spending most of their time on. We get it documented and delegated and handed over, and it's like instant. And of course, in their head, they're thinking, oh, well, I've got to document my whole business. And it's like, no, you don't.
No.
Like, you will never need to document your whole business. You just need to prioritize. And when you start in one area, it gets easier and easier as you go along. But you have to start with the biggest problem. And so attending an event like this, where like, here's the problem I want to solve, it then means that, 80% of the stands in the room don't become relevant anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
And instead you can swoop down on the ones that do.
And it's not just the vendors, is it? You've also got the amazing speakers. You've got the people walking around and the groups and everything else. These sort of events is where you can tackle those problems, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I spoke at another event, in fact, where we did the panel, it's DAS. And the topic that I was talking about there was like, how do you actually make tech work in your firm and not be like just a digital magpie where you're kind of like just choosing one of these tools? Because that's one of the other things that people struggle with is they'll take an idea or a solution and start to implement it or just buy it into the firm and then never utilize it.
Yeah, no, don't know 90% of what it can do. Or the worst one that I definitely was at the early stages what I would do, I'd come to an event like this and have 5 different systems and be like, we're changing all 5 of them tomorrow because they're so shiny, they're so great, they're going to do so much for me. And obviously my team wasn't quite happy with that for some reason. Yeah, so...
Yeah, because they're not bought into, is it solving our biggest problem?
Yeah.
And, if you go back to your team with all of those ideas, it's often described as being like, it's like you have the wet towel thrown over you, or the wet blanket.
Yeah.
You're all buzzing and excited, oh, I've got all these ideas. And then you just go, but we haven't got time for that, or whatever. It's like, oh, you always do this when you come back from an event.
Yeah.
And so to avoid that, you need to go back with, so I believe our biggest problem is X. And like, do they agree with that? Because if they don't, that's a useful exercise in itself. I've looked at these as as potential solutions. I think this one might be the best one based on the following. And then again, get their input because they might have other solutions. But if they agree with those things, they're like, oh, fantastic. Like, you're so much further on than just insert supplier name here is going to be the answer to all our prayers. Because they'll just say, it's what you said from the last 10 events. And we've not implemented any of it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, from the industry like this, what do you love about it? What is the bit that... Because obviously, you've come from a different background, right? You've got your software, something... You say that we've adopted you, but you must have also had some reason to want to be in this industry or have a thing. But what is it that you've loved about this industry? What drives you here?
Yeah, so my background, so I was always entrepreneurial. So like I was trying to start businesses from the age of 12.
Yeah, brilliant.
But whenever it went well, I'd get busy and then I'd be stuck and I couldn't work out how to grow the business. And so every time I was like, oh, it's the business model. I'm running the wrong type of business. And so I'd change it. And so I think I worked out, I counted at some point, but I've now lost count of the number of businesses that I've kind of set up and run, generally overlapping as well. And so then after deciding I just can't make this work, I became management consultant because if you can't do something, you should tell other people how to do it. But it was great because I actually learned, because I worked for a big consultancy, I learned how bigger businesses grow and scale using people and processes. And that was kind of where I got my love for how you solve those challenges.
Love that.
And so having then done that for, really exciting firms, working with like AstraZeneca and BP and parts of the UK government and so on, to really solve big problems, I then came out and started doing my own consultancy, working with firms like Sony and so on getting really hands-on with solving those collaboration problems, and then started my software businesses.
Yeah.
And it was there that I then learned, actually, it's not the business model that's the issue, because in theory, a software business should be highly scalable. And yet still, initially, I struggled. And so I realized it was because I'm a control freak, because I have a high attention to detail, because I'm a quick thinker, because I assume that people just know how something should be done. I made all those mistakes and as a result really struggled to grow. And I think that's why I feel very qualified to talk about that as a topic on stages, is because I wasn't naturally just good at it. I have had to learn as being one of the worst people at delegation you've ever met.
Yeah.
And now I'm considered really good at it and so on, and I've helped lots of other people do it too. But I've had to do it paint my numbers, learning my way. So I think that helped. But it was through my second software business where I was working with an accountancy. It was MBS Accountants, and they started using our AirManual platform to host all their processes, and because they'd started off in Loom and Scribe and whatever, and it became a mess. So they get everything in one place, get their team doing things the way they want them done, and they said, this is perfect for accountants. You should be going to these events. And because I'm an idiot, it took me a little bit of time before I actually did what he said. But then came to the events and just loved it because of all the reasons I've talked about, how great the people are and how aligned to the same values. And so then started to learn, this is why accountancies really benefit from sorting out their processes. This is why they struggle with it typically. And they're so aligned as well around the reducing stress angle. Yeah. Because when I did an equivalent with SaaS software businesses, they were I don't need to take stress out of my business. I'll probably sell it in 3 to 5 years. Yeah. Whereas that's not the case for an accountancy business. Yeah. You're no, I love my clients. Yeah. I love the work I do. I just don't want to work weekends. And I do want to take an occasional holiday with my partner. And so that's very aligned to what we're doing. So that kind of pulled me in. And so 100%. That's why I'm...
But even if they are, a little bit exit driven, that factor, whatever that factor they're looking to get, will be multiplied significantly more if they've got good systems in place. Yeah. Because that's what people want. They want to buy a safe pair of hands, right?
Absolutely. And also, as you grow a practice or, any business, you need to elevate what you're doing. Yeah. It's only natural that when you first start, you are wearing all the hats, you're doing all the jobs. Yeah. But over time, you've got to let go of those because otherwise you can't do the higher value stuff. And I think sometimes people hold back because they're but then what would I do? It's believe me, you will find other stuff to do, but it'll be higher value. And so really that's the game of business is, I often talk about it as it's a cycle of finding out what works. So whether it's that marketing channel, that ideal client fit, that way in which you deliver the service. And then once you've found that, do more of that. And then you need to be able to go back to finding out what else works. So then when you get to that point, you then need to be able to let go of that thing. You need to get it documented, handed over so that your team are then selling or marketing or delivering in the way that you want. And then that frees you up so that you can then find out what else works. What other marketing channels, what other verticals are we going to do? What other services might we add until it works? Then get it being done consistently and then back. And you're to some extent, your success and growth is down to how quickly you move through those two states. Yeah. And just over and over and over.
And just keep learning. Yeah. I mean, you've already mentioned Rachel was on your podcast, but her whole thing is built to franchise, right? Everything is built to... She's never going to franchise it out, but she builds it as it was a franchise. It's very similar to what you're saying, isn't it? It's those processes you're putting in there, that is built that if I was going to franchise it out, how in-depth would I want to... That's the kind of the beta of how it needs to be, right?
Yeah, and I think that having that is so crucial. And most of the sort of successful businesses that you talk to, and particularly where they've been able to extract themselves, they have something in place that's similar to that. But I think often the mistake that people make is they assume or they think that the level of detail for everything needs to be the same. Yeah. So, for example, if you're recording it as a series of videos or, one of those applications that kind of tracks your clicks, the problem there is you end up with these massive documents where it's click here, screenshot, and it's too much for someone to actually follow every time they do it.
And all it takes is UI change and it's broken, right?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And as soon as you change anything, it's a nightmare. Yeah. And so what we said instead, and what I talked about in my presentation yesterday, is actually what you want is, firstly, give them clarity of outcome. What is it that you want your team member to produce? What's the end point? Yeah. How are you going to measure success? What are the results they should be looking for? Second, give them clarity on the permissions, the boundaries, the ownership. What do you expect them to make decisions on? What do you expect them to defer back to you? When should they escalate? When should they hand it over? Yeah. And then add the detail, the guidance on the tricky bits. I mentioned the fettuccine and marshmallow tower. I didn't have a step that's right, insert piece of fettuccine A into marshmallow B, then do this. The document would have been so big and should have taken ages to do it. Instead, it had things like use the fettuccine in pairs so it's stronger, so it doesn't snap or it's not a problem if it doesn't. Yeah. use a triangle and use the big marshmallows at the bottom to make a firm base. It was on the specific bits that were easy to get wrong.
Yeah.
And that's what you really want in your processes. And it's okay to get your processes 60, 80% there, but then importantly, fourth, iterate.
Yeah.
People so often expect that having done the guidance, and particularly if you've spent a long time on it, which you shouldn't do, by the way, typically we'll document a process in less than 30 minutes, but if you've spent days on it, you then feel like you should just be able to hand it over and that they then just do it and are successful. The reality is that it doesn't happen that way. Like even the guidance that I had for building a marshmallow tower, I tested with my 9-year-old daughter and it did not go to plan. And so I had to iterate on it to get there. And I think that's the problem, is that people will expect that this is how
put this effort in, that must be the output.
Yeah, and so as it relates to business, it means that get them to walk through the process so that you can see them do it, get them to iterate on it, change the guidance so that they're more likely to be successful, but then also use other forms of feedback loops. So one-to-ones with your team members, performance reviews, review cycles. Like in the accountancy world, I did a hands-up poll. I said, for how many of you, honestly, as part of your working papers and production cycle, when the junior prepares it and doesn't do it right, how many of you are fixing the mistake rather than providing feedback so that it's done next time? Everyone, right? Everyone. Like aside from like 5 people. And so that's a problem in terms of how you're going to get great performance. And so you do need to be able to iterate. And it comes to your point, like how you capture it needs to be easy to iterate on. And often in my podcast and in the playbooks, we talk about how do you do that? But like, that's the core, is like, don't create these monster things that take you days to produce. And then by the time you've done that, you're exhausted and you hand it over to an employee and then you're fed up because they don't do it quite the way you wanted anyway. Yeah,
you've already lost your vision on that one. So that's what you love about the industry. It's quite a lot of there, but that's what you love about it. What would you change about our industry? What keeps you in bed at night thinking, if only the accountants would do this better or that better?
Yeah.
You've said a lot about our structure and our systems and everything else. Is there anything else that you think is just holding our industry back?
Easy. So I would say that one of the things that I said that I love about the industry is that accountants genuinely want really great outcomes for their clients. And particularly, that outcome looks like happier, healthier, able to spend time with the people that matter most to them, and so on. The phrase comes from the medical profession, which is physician, heal thyself.
Okay.
I think I see too many practice owners, leaders, etc., who will passionately describe how important it is that they achieve these amazing results for their clients and then forget that they are a business owner too.
Yeah.
And that if it helps them, think about it as a really useful thing for you to do for your clients, to look after yourself as well. To really think about, actually, am I living how I want to live? Am I enjoying the journey? And spending time with the people that matter most to me, and working out, okay, if not, shine that spotlight. What's currently the biggest negative impact on that? And keep on doing that, because I see too much of that in the industry. And unfortunately, it contributes to the hiring problem. Because if as a business leader, you're in that sort of stressed place, it flows down.
To come down. Exactly.
And so it means that you end up with a team that's stressed around tax deadline crunch and so on. If you can fix that in your business, it becomes a lot easier to attract talent. And as an industry, that's one of the biggest challenges that exists.
Yeah. And it's definitely a historical issue, right? That's where it stemmed from. It's how it was always done. So why would we want to change it? Like, January is always going to be a bad time. So why would we want to change the way and put processes in place to make it? So we've got to. I think we're doing better as an industry. We're starting to turn the clock, starting to kind of win it back a little bit more. But we just got to do it quicker, haven't we? And more pace. Okay, so I'm going to give you a time machine. And with this time machine, you're allowed to go back 12 months. And I want you to go back to yourself 12 months ago. And you're going to hand a piece of technology or an app, or it could be personal, it could be a kettle or a coffee machine or something, right? Or it's business related. I want you to hand something back to yourself 12 months ago that you are using now that is absolutely top of your tech stack list, game changer thing that you think, if only I'd known about that sooner.
I think for me, I'm seeing huge jumps forward. Of course, we all are with AI, right? Yeah. And so for a long time, ever since whenever it was, November 2-3 years ago now, when we first got like ChatGPT and you could actually use it and so on. And of course, back then it had various problems that were obvious.
We didn't fully understand what we're using it for, right? We were just...
Indeed, and so there's lots of bad use cases for it,
Yeah.
whereas now I've got it embedded into our processes that my team use.
Brilliant.
So, for example, a case study is a great one, actually. We wrote this as a checklist as part of one of our playbooks on winning more ideal clients, because in the accountancy industry, one of the biggest opportunities for more clients is sharing case studies of great work you've done, because as a service, what you get as accountancy is very difficult to demonstrate. Like, you could give someone a set of accounts and go, I did those. It's not very compelling.
Yeah.
So what you really want to do is show the client journey. So how do you do that? Well, you do a case study. Easy. Except that the people who are able to write case studies in your business tend to be your most valuable resources. They're the salespeople, they're the practice leaders, and so on. And also, those people suck at copywriting and hate doing it.
Yeah.
So as a result, you end up with maybe 2 case studies that you did when you first set up, and you've been trading on them forever. And that doesn't work, right? Because you shift as a business and you deliver more value. So what we did was we wrote a prompt for how to take all your recordings of calls and meetings that you've had with clients. So if you use a tool like, I use Fathom Video, but there's like Otter or Fireflies or whatever. Use those in your meetings. I recommend use those in your meetings.
100%.
Because then you can create AI summaries of those using ChatGPT or Descript or whatever, or those tools like Fathom Video, and then take those and then use a prompt like the one that we've got in this checklist that you can get for free in the Win More Ideal Clients playbook, airmanual.link/playbooks. And it's got a prompt there that will take your notes as well, because you might just put notes if you don't have transcripts or summaries. It'll take all of that and it'll turn it into a compelling case study that's organized around. So it'll do an exec summary. It'll then do what was the challenge that the client had, what was the turning point, like when did they decide right, enough is enough, what was the solution that you implemented, what was the impact of that, what was the key lesson learned. It organizes that. The prompting is all written in around the style to bring across the emotional impact, bring across the numbers, to include quotes, so that you end up with like the copy for a decent case study. Now, of course, it needs review and it needs editing, so it might not be 100% accurate and so on. And there might be ways in which you could tweak the prompting to be more appropriate to your brand and so on. But as a starting point, you've now got something that would probably have taken you days and you wouldn't have done it. And so you've got a starting point. So we've been using that to suddenly go from creating a case study once every few months to creating a case study for every single client we work with.
Wow.
And that's actually a really powerful thing, even for them, for the client, because it means that internally they're able to go, oh yeah, like we did get all that incredible impact. Because that's easy to lose sight of. And I think as an accountancy practice, imagine if every client you work with, you gave them a case study after, say, the first year of working with them about like, do you remember this is where you were, and this is what we did, this is the impact. And then often they'll even give you more stuff to go into it. And then you go, oh, brilliant. And then, of course, you can share that. So I think that would be, if I had that a year ago, that would have been awesome.
Used all that data from there. Love that. Okay, fantastic. Now, this is a Pitstop podcast, so fortunately, we could go for a lot longer on these topics. And I really would hope that you come back to do one of our We Have Cool Friends episodes, because there's so much more we want to go through.
Very happy to.
But we're supposed to keep this punchy, and producers telling me off at the moment of going over time and all that sort of stuff. So before we go there, I'd like you to play our little game. So
I'm terrified.
Have 5 cards in front of me, and these 5 cards are, you have the opportunity to ask me yes or no questions, and if you want to, you can skip at any point, but that will be a 1-minute penalty. Now, prior to this, you said that you wanted to beat my score, so we're going to see how that goes. I've got every faith in you.
Which I realise is incredibly foolhardy.
I might have been really kind to you on the cards. But
I either want to be first or last. Middle is boring.
We're going to use this opportunity then for you to play out a little game. If I can ask you to ask me questions in 3, 2, 1. Ask me some silly questions.
Are they human? Because
they are.
They are. Male?
Male, yes.
Male. Are they a software vendor?
Yes.
They're a software vendor. Predominantly bookkeeping?
Definitely known more for bookkeeping, yes. They have other bits in their ecosystem, but yeah.
Are they an owner of a vendor firm?
Not owner, but very, you'd know them because of this.
Very senior in a vendor firm. Are they, you said it's more on bookkeeping. Is it like a bookkeeping software?
Yeah, and
it's
happy to go around them if you want.
Yeah, so could be at Xero. No, could be at Free Agent.
No.
Could be at QuickBooks.
No.
Could be at Sage.
Yes.
It's at Sage. Is it Chris Downing?
Chris Downing.
Boom.
First one done. Right. Next one.
Human?
You keep going. Yes.
Bookkeeping?
No.
Software vendor?
No.
Are they speaker, influencer, events person?
Yep.
Ooh.
There are also other things as well, but yeah.
Okay, mainly that. Or, I mean, it could be like Rachel Harris.
Could be similar, but not
isn't.
quite.
Did you say mainly accounting or mainly bookkeeping?
Accounting.
Mainly accounting.
Yes. I'm supposed to say yes or no.
Yeah, that's all right. I don't know. I'm going to be Caroline Hobden or... let's see if you got... Oh, sorry.
You've not done male or female yet?
Oh, female?
No.
Male, okay.
Yes.
So male person in the accounting. Oh, I'm really struggling. I'm going to pass.
You sure?
No.
might be an eyesight.
What is that? Is that not Ryan Piercy? No, it's not Ryan.
As in eyesight, you can see them.
Oh, as in you. It's you. Oh, my goodness. If I had passed on you, that would have been extra funny. Why didn't I do that? I should have done that. Human?
No.
No. Is it a place?
Not a place, but...
Event?
Event, yes.
Is it the event that we're at now?
No.
Stupid question.
We do have that card, but...
Festival of Accounting and Bookkeeping?
No.
DAS?
Yes.
Hey. Human?
Yes.
Male?
No.
Particularly involved in events or social media influencer thing?
Yes, very much so. Very, very much so.
Rachel Harris?
Yes. Next one. Last one.
Human?
No.
Event?
No.
Place?
No.
Some kind of weird thing that happens at exhibitions? Like Grid Square?
Very, very much so, yeah.
Like
very
a grid?
much a Grid Square.
Is it doing interviews? Is it the pit stop?
The Accountancy Playbooks.
Awesome.
So, without any skips, you were able to get 2 minute 45.
That sounds...
Which will actually get you in the top 10.
Quite pleased with that.
In fact, as of recording, you're third. No, second.
Second. Who am I second to?
Myself. But I did create the game. I have picked all of things out.
So
your final...
Not first, though. We're just making that really clear. You have decided I am not in first position because you are. Got it.
I mean, you've just got to take the rough and smooth, haven't you? I want you to use that camera, whichever one you want to plug and plug away.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. I hope that if you found this interesting, check out Alexis Kingsbury on social media platforms, particularly active on LinkedIn. And if you're interested in making it easy for your team to do things the way you want them done, then please do check out either AirManual, which you can find at airmanual.co, or go get yourself one of the playbooks that I mentioned, which you can find at airmanual.co/resources or airmanual.link/playbooks. I think either of those work. But yeah, and of course, do check out the podcast, De-Stress Your Business.
Yeah, definitely. I'm loving the podcast. I think it's great. Thank you so much, Bruno. Again, please, we need to get you back. We need to get you one of your cards. I think it's got to be done. And one day, maybe even a shiny one as well. So thank you so much. And if you've enjoyed this particular piece of content, don't forget you're already in the right place. So make sure you like, subscribe, and all that sort of jazz. We've got plenty more podcast pit stops coming your way from Accountex 2025. Don't forget they've got the grid walk as well, where we take you around behind the scenes, showing you exactly what's going on. Alexis, thank you again. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to see you on there. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you in the next bit of content. Thank you. Bye.